So hello everyone and welcome to a Shaman guide video. Now before we start, I want to let you guys know why I didn't upload the guide last week. It's because I wanted to take a bit of a break to prepare for Matching Fire. What I mean by that is, once Shaman, Warlord and Valk guides are out, meaning in 2 weeks, the guides will focus on the new Woolen characters. That means in 3 weeks, the first extensive Woolen guide will come out and I will do my best to make it as good as possible. There will of course be a poll, which lets you guys decide which of the new characters will have a guide about them next. Alright, that's about it for the intro, hope you guys enjoyed the Shaman guide. So with us today to teach us Shaman is Clutchmeister. Now Clutch, you've been on my channel multiple times before, but in case anyone still somehow isn't sure who you are, could you give us an introduction?
I'm Clutchmeister. I'm currently a full-time streamer of For Honor on Twitch. I'm captain of UDA, which is both yours and my Dominion team. We're known as the best 4v4 team in the game. Our main A-team lineup didn't lose a single 4v4 tournament that we participated in. I'm also the current Mistress Mayhem 2v2 champion, which is the biggest 2v2 tournament in the game right now. I believe the last tournament prize pool for it was over $560. I'm also considered to be one of, if not the best 1v1ers in the game as well. So not only am I a full-time streamer, I'm also considered to be one of the highest skilled players in the game. So I like to think I know what I'm talking about.
So what are some of Shaman's unique tools for dealing with someone's offense?
Shaman's strongest tool regarding stifling someone's offense is going to be her side dodge attack. Her side dodge attack has a very small window you have to wait after dodging to actually input it. I believe it's about 100 milliseconds. Compare this to characters like Valkyrie and Gladiator, who I believe have 300 milliseconds. It means you have much more time to react to things like Valkyrie Shield Bash, Conqueror Shield Bash, Warlord Headbutt, and get a punish off. Especially with Conqueror and Warlord, they have a low recovery time on a whiffed bash. So certain characters will struggle to get a punish off, right? For example, characters like Orochi will, if you don't react extremely quickly with the side dodge attack, will usually end up getting blocked after, like, say a Warlord misses his headbutt. But because Shaman's is so fast, she can pretty much always get a punish off on a dodged Shield Bash or Warlord Headbutt because it's so quick. This works for a lot of moves in the game that have some form of recovery, even the moves that have less recovery, because it's so fast you can catch them, whereas other side dodge attacks would probably get blocked or avoided. So that's definitely her strongest tool in regards to punishing offense. You also have an option select, which is really good as well. She has a 500 MS, 25 damage option select if my zone input would actually work, which means that it's very strong. Like, a lot of 500 MS zones are very good, for example, like Wardens, Orochis, etc. But Shaman's is actually very strong because it's a lot of damage, 25 damage on a 500 MS zone, plus it can be soft feinted into a bleed stab on any side. So if you end up landing the mix-up with the bleed stabs, you end up landing, I believe, is 18 for bleed, so you land about 43 damage.
Yeah, it's a lot of damage. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but it's a lot of damage. And if you actually land the zone, you can do those mix-ups, or you can just hard feint it as well, of course, to stay safe.
It's important not to go too crazy with Shaman Zone though, because one of the things that people don't realize is it works a lot like Berserker Zone, where so if you block the first hit of the zone, you can parry the second follow-up, and it works the same for the third and fourth hit as well. If you block the third hit, you can parry the fourth hit, and the third and fourth hit actually count as light parries, whereas the first 2 hits of the zone count as heavy parries, which is important to remember if you're fighting a Shaman.
Yep. So anytime you block a Shaman zone, the parry is guaranteed, but it's still a very good option select.
There is one more. It's not used as often because it's not as good, but it would obviously be her parry into a guard break soft feint. Because obviously what a lot of, like, say low to medium skill players will do, they'll heavy feint and then try to parry the heavy attempt, right? So if you go into like a heavy attempt delay into the guard break soft feint, you can also catch enemy players parry attempts with the guard break soft feint as well. It's not going to be as strong as the first 2 options, but if you throw that into your game, it's still going to help you in the long run.
Yeah, it's something you can just do every now and then. Alright, so that's her defense. And now what about her offense? How do I deal damage as Shaman?
Alright, so her core offense will be her delayed bash, which is the actual bash part of that, where the indicator comes up, is 400 MS, which makes it very difficult to react to, especially if you delay it. And her bleed soft feints from heavies, which are 500 MS on the sides and 400 from top. A very important trick with these bleed soft feints, though, is that you'll notice a very large increase in their effectiveness if you can start feinting them on the last couple of frames, because as we spoke about in our Berserker guide, for example, feinting the unblockables later on has a chance to flicker the indicator, but with actual soft feinted attacks, if you soft feint them at the last second, it actually speeds them up. So say the top bleed soft feint is intended to be 400 MS, but if you soft feint it at the last second, it actually gets sped up by 67 milliseconds and becomes 333. That might not sound like a lot to a lot of people, but when it comes to reacting to things, that is actually a large speed increase for the attack, and it can make a big difference between especially very good players from reacting to the top soft feint and not being able to react to it. And regarding the bash, what you want to do is you obviously want to try to delay it, but this obviously creates an easy window for it to be avoided. So what you'll tend to do is after you've landed it once or twice, you want to try and practice last frame feinting the bash as well, because Shaman has a thing where you can actually flicker her unblockable icon if you delay it last second. Let's see if I can manage to do it.
Oh, yep. All right.
So and that's the great thing, because that means it is literally impossible to react to her unblockable icon, because not only is it 400 MS, which is already insanely difficult to react to, the fact that she can actually flicker the first part of it means the window to actually react to it is even smaller than say like Kensei's pommel strike, which is the same speed. The only issue with the Shaman bash right now is that it's very difficult to actually punish someone who will dodge when you move forward and then just unlock roll either on unblockable or on like a cancel into guard break. So for example, if you go to bash me, what people will do is just like we'll do that kind of thing, right? So they'll dodge, or and then they'll unlock roll to like avoid the GB, right? So if you do it again, like they'll dodge to avoid the bash. It's just a habit of people. They'll learn to basically just unlock on reaction to the guard break, right? Which it does heavily stifle the bash punish. I mean, there are obviously like very complicated paths you can take, right? You can kind of go for like feinted bash, like say like 3 times in a row. The only issue with this is it obviously leaves you very open, right? The whole time you're doing these things, you're free to be hit. So you have to have very, very hard reads on your opponent if they are actually good enough to understand how they can counter the bash with unlock rolling. And when it comes to the bleed soft feint, side dodging will actually avoid both raw heavies and soft feinted bleeds from every direction. So if you just dodge on the same timing for both the bleeds and the heavies, if I throw some out, actually you can just throw them out and I can do it. And then if you bleed soft feint them.
Yep, it doesn't matter which side.
Yep, and obviously with Shaman, if you dodge those, if you throw them out, I get guaranteed punish with the 500 MS dodge attack we were talking about earlier. The counter to it, of course, would be the heavy into guard break soft feint with the Shaman, because you can obviously catch them in their dodge frames. However, this again is countered by unlocking to roll away, so I didn't actually dodge early enough. That was my bad.
Yep. Now, when it comes to the rolls, by the way, the devs have said, to everyone watching, the devs have said that they want to fix them. I'm not sure when. It might be in Season 8, I think they said. So it depends on what they do to it, that this might be not as big of an issue. But still, as the game is right now, this is what it looks like. So just so you guys know, in Season 8 it might be better, and it might be a little bit easier to get a little bit more damage on people. So you've talked about the dagger cancel, the zone, and the bash offensively. But now, what about the bite? When do I want to use it? Is it good?
I mean, it's definitely very, very strong. I believe it's 50 damage applied to the opponent, and I think it's 20 heal. So it should be about a 70 damage swing if you're missing 20 or more health, which is obviously extremely powerful in a 1v1 situation. It actually won't, at least at the higher levels, because of the unlock roll option select I was showing you earlier. It actually doesn't land very often, but the extremely powerful thing about it is if you land a light parry on your opponent while they're bleeding, you get a guaranteed bite. So essentially, if you apply a bleed to me and I'll throw out a light attack on you just to show people, that basically means that your light parry becomes a 70 damage swing. Obviously, once you've bit them, it removes all bleed. But it's still extremely powerful to be able to have that option where if you just parry a single light attack, it's going to be 70 damage. I don't think there's a character in the game that has a higher light parry.
I don't think so. No, so that's really good. And also, if you get a light parry, you can also, which we also mentioned again in the punishes later on. But if you get a light parry and they're not bleeding, you can make them bleed, as the dagger cancel is guaranteed on a light parry as well.
Yeah, it basically just comes down to a choice of, do I want the bleed, even though it's less damage than a raw heavy, because after you've applied that bleed, your bashes apply a lot more pressure. Your opponent will be a lot more worried about being hit with it, obviously, because the max damage you're going to eat from a non-bleed bash is 25 plus the bleed stab mix up from the zone, and that obviously eats up a lot of the Shaman stamina as well. However, a bite will heal you for 20, deal 50 to the opponent, and also fills your stamina as well, so it's an extremely powerful tool. Not only that, but when you are bleeding, all of your attacks heal as well, so which it technically increases the damage your attacks are doing, because it's not just a pure damage to your opponent, but it's also healing you. So it's, for example, Shaman Bite is 50 damage, but it's a 70 damage swing because it also heals you for 20. So it makes all of your attacks, technically, it gives you more of a damage swing. So it increases the effectiveness of all of your raw attacks as well when you're hitting an opponent that's bleeding. So I personally like to go for a bleed off of my light parries, unless I'm in a situation where a heavy will kill my opponent if they're 27 or less health, because a heavy does 27 damage on Shaman. That's the only time I'll ever go for heavy, is if they're 27 or less, because a bleed wouldn't kill them.
Okay. Alright, so that's the bite. Now there's two more things that we haven't talked about yet when it comes to Shaman's kit. It's her jumping heavies, which you can do from any direction, and her unblockable, which is a left side chain heavy. Now, when do I want to use these tools, and are they usable in 1v1?
The top forward dash heavy is probably her weakest overall. It's quite slow. It's very easy to react to. So that is one, as well as her running like raw heavy, like a running attack. Both of them you shouldn't really be using too much in 1v1s, because I believe they're the same animation for both attacks. So they're both very easy to react to. If you're going to be using your dash attacks, you want to be using either the right hand side or left hand side ones. So that or this one.
Yep. The right hand side for you from Shaman's perspective is the quickest. The left side is a little bit slower, but it's still somewhat usable. And they all chain into the unblockable or into a heavy if you want to.
Yes. They're good against, say, lower to mid-level players, but they're very risky to use at high level because they are reactable. If you want to just throw out a few just dash attack random directions, and I'll just parry them to show that they are reactable.
Yeah, there is no mix-up there possible, really, as well.
Yeah, so basically you'll eventually get to a skill level in 1v1s where they will just be able to react to those attacks every single time, unless you're like there's a very bad connection, but that doesn't really count. So regarding your dash heavies, that you don't really want to be using them that much. They're more for like punishing in 4v4, 2v2 modes, or for your punishes, which we'll show you later on. But her dash heavies definitely aren't something you want to be using too much. Now, her unblockable can be done after her double lights, after a raw heavy, after a dash attack, side dodge attacks. And like pretty much all unblockable mix-ups in the game, it's either easily reactable or difficult to react to if you can last frame feint. Last frame feinting is very important when it comes to unblockable mix-ups. You'll probably be able to see the difference if I'll do 3 late fainted unblockables compared to 3 late fainted unblockables, just so you can see the difference. I'll start off with the early ones. Oh, what am I doing? Alright, just ignore that little segment. Alright, let's go.
Right. And then also when it comes to the late feints and things like that, I will be leaving a link in the description for you guys to see. I have a video made by Freeze who showed all of this with frame data and things like that, so you will be able to see exactly the differences if you cannot see them, if you will not be able to see them here.
Okay, now I'll try to do some late feints.
Yeah. Even by animation, it looks weird, let's say.
So as you see, the late feints are definitely a lot more difficult to react to, whereas the early ones are actually pretty simple to react to. There's quite a large window for you to react to them. So this tool is either, if you can't last frame feint, it's not worth using because it's not very strong. But if you can last frame feint, it is something that you will be able to mix up a lot with. It's the strongest uses of the unblockable come either when the opponent is bleeding or when they're out of stamina. Because when they're bleeding and you guard break their parry attempt, you get the free bite, 70 damage swing. Or if they're out of stamina, you get to forward throw them into dash attack and then either top or right heavy into a follow-up bleed, which is a lot of damage. And you also set up the bleed for a bleed pounce mix-up while they're still out of stamina. Mm-hmm. So in those 2 particular situations, the unblockable last frame GB mix-up is very strong. Against characters which have a small GB window, like where it's almost impossible to guard break them on a parry attempt. For example, characters like Aramusha, Gladiator, Conqueror, characters like that. Instead of guard breaking, what you'd want to do is you'd want to cancel your unblockable with a dodge into like a side dodge attack, because you can actually soft feint your unblockable with dodges as well. And going into the side dodge attack, it'll be a little easier to punish characters who try to parry you because you have more of a window to land the attack, right? So if you're going up against characters with small GB windows, use the side dodge attacks. If you're going up against characters where you can actually guard break their heavies early on for more than 100 milliseconds, then you use the guard break soft feint instead.
Alright, that sounds good. Alright, so is that everything for offense?
I mean, you also have things like your bash into like attack, like soft feint, but it's not really utilized. The problem is there's such a delay in between like soft feinting that a lot of the time things like unlock roll or just like, so say if I dodge a bash and you soft feint into a, if you like soft feint into a like a dash attack from the bash, a lot of the time I'll have time to at least block the follow up, if not parry it.
Yep.
So it's a tool she has, and sometimes if someone dodges at a specific time, you can catch people, or if they roll at the wrong time, the dash heavy can land. But a lot of the time, those mix-ups aren't really going to be landing, and like I said, unless the other player like messes up, there are ways to nullify it. So even though she does have that tool, it's not really utilized and isn't that strong. Other than that, I think we have pretty much spoken about everything. All
right, sounds good. So there's a few different combinations you can do that Clutch just mentioned, but generally speaking, all the offensive tools have been talked about. Alright, so let's now talk about matchups. Are there any matchups you want to specifically talk about in 1v1 for Shaman?
I guess the main matchup that makes Shaman at least a consideration at the highest levels is the Gladiator matchup. As we mentioned earlier, the side dodge attack can punish a Gladiator zone, whether it's let go or whether it's feinted, pretty much on any dodge timing because of how fast the side dodge attack is, which means that against a Shaman, Gladiator's zone is not a safe form of offense. It's 600 MS, so it is relatively easy to consistently react to it. Like at least about, I'd say 70-75% of the time, good players will be dodging Glad zone, probably even higher than that. I feel like I can dodge Gladiator zone a majority of the time, assuming I'm not streaming and have a good connection. So Shaman, probably out of all the characters in the game, might have the strongest matchup versus Gladiator, maybe apart from characters like Berserker, maybe Orochi as well, because they're both very good with his short and reflex guard and chain lights. But Shaman is definitely the character which nullifies his offense the hardest out of any character in the game, and basically forces it to be more of basically just more of a matchup of his lights and heavy mix-ups, which aren't particularly fantastic. So she really does a good job of nullifying what makes Gladiator an S-tier 1v1 character. In terms of characters that she struggles against a lot of the assassins other than Gladiator, because she doesn't really have any fast neutral attacks other than her bleed top soft feint. And the problem with the bleed top soft feint is you have to heavy and then go into the bleed, which leaves you open for a lot of time, whereas characters for Berserker can just feint a heavy, then he gets hyper armor. Or you can, like PK for example, not only does she have dagger cancel, which is just like Shaman's bleed soft feint, she also has a zone attack, which is 15 damage, 400 MS from neutral. Very, very strong tool, and it's very annoying to deal with because due to the nature of reflex guard and how it drops, PK has an easy time sneaking in damage with her zone attack. So Shaman tends to struggle. I think the only other assassin she might be alright against is Shinobi, because I think she can actually land a side dodge attack on a dodge slide because it's so fast. But I think it might go into hyper armor. I'm not sure if it's safe or whether you have to throw out like a chain heavy to catch like a guard break attempt on the way up. But she's definitely one of the few, if possibly only, character that can land damage on a dodged Shinobi slide. She's definitely weak versus Conqueror. She because Conqueror really heavily nullifies all of her offense. But she can at least get some kind of punish consistently on a dodge shield bash with a side dodge attack. Same with Warlord's Headbutt as well. She doesn't have an incredible punish for a dodge crashing charge like some characters do, but she can at least still punish Headbutt, which isn't used an awful lot by Warlords anymore. At least good Warlords, it will be mostly crashing charge mix-ups, but they still use it every so often, so it's still nice to have. But I think those are probably the main matchups that I can think of that are important to know with Shaman. Like I said, her main use at high level play is pretty much as a Gladiator counterpick. That's pretty much what she is best at, and the only reason why she would be considered to be played, like say in a tournament setting, if you go up against someone who's an extremely Gladiator main, you might, if you're good with Shaman, you might want to pick her just so that you can completely nullify their offense.
And also when it comes to the new Woolen heroes, since you said that PK is very good against Shaman, most likely Shaolin is going to be good against Shaman as well. Nusha with her 2 400 MS lights in a chain might be okay as well. Now of course she probably might struggle to actually get to her chains, but once she does get to them, she has 2 400 MS lights in a row, which against Shaman reflex guard character might be pretty good. Someone like Tiandi might be difficult to attack due to his like dodge attacks and things like that, and Jungjun is probably just going to be a normal matchup where Jungjun doesn't really have much. So against the Woolen heroes, some of them against some of them Shaman might struggle pretty hard, but we'll see once Marching Fire comes out.
Okay, her guard break and light parry punishes are actually the same. So, for example, if I guard break you, you've got two choices. You can go either for the bleed soft feint, assuming they're not already bleeding, or a heavy. Now, a majority of the time, I'm going to go with the bleed stab, because when someone is bleeding, they'll naturally feel a lot more pressured by a Shaman because it enables her bleed pounce, as well as the fact that it also gives you a little heal for all of the attacks that you land on a bleeding opponent, so it increases the damage swing of every attack she has. The only time I would ever go for a heavy from a light parry or a guard break is if they are around just over a bar of health or under, because a heavy deals about 27 damage. So if they're at 27 or less health, I would throw a heavy just to finish them off, because the bleed stab does deal less damage. So those are the main punish terms on those. However, if the opponent's already bleeding, if I just apply a bleed, if you guard break or light parry, you get a guaranteed bleed bite, which is 70 damage swing if you're missing 20 or more health, because it heals you for 20 and deals 50 to the opponent. Obviously, the strongest GB punish and light parry punish in the game. You know, not counting ledging from certain characters or anything like that. So obviously very, very strong. From a heavy parry, if you throw out a heavy, her main punish is going to be her zone attack, which is 25 damage, and then you get a follow-up mix-up.
Of course, if you're low on stamina, you're below half or about half, you're going to want to just do lights, right?
Yeah, the Shaman bash does wall splat, and when you wall splat, it increases the punish you can get. You can land either a bleed soft feint, or you can land a raw heavy. Let me just get rid of the bleed.
Yep.
Or you can land a raw heavy. Again, it's pretty much I make the same decision. I have the same decision-making process when I bash someone into the wall as I do on a guard break or light parry. I'll always go for the bleed over a heavy if it's not going to kill them, just so I can apply pressure, you know, get heal off my attacks, enable the bleed bite. Or I'll go for the heavy if it's going to kill them. The one thing I will say as well is some people might go for, like, say if they're playing against somebody who is getting hit by a lot of bleed soft feint mix-ups, they might go for the zone instead of like a heavy, just because you have that potential of it hitting a lot harder. It's important to note that if you zone off of a wall splat, the second hit is actually damage mitigated, so your zone actually isn't dealing as much damage. Yep. You see how I hit you there, and the hyper armor is up to show the damage mitigation. So I wouldn't recommend using the zone on the wall splat, because the lower damage means the stamina cost for it's just not going to be worth it.
Yep, of course it's the same with lights. If you decide to light attack, for example, if you're low on stamina and for some reason you don't want to heavy, or you for some reason think you don't want to heavy, and you do a light attack, then of course the second light attack is also going to be damage reduced. So go for the yep, there you can see the hyper armor, and that's how Forerunner shows that your the attack was damage mitigated. So just go for the heavy or for the bleed stab, depending on what you want. Alright, so now what about out of stamina punishes? So first of all, guard breaks.
Okay, our guard break is forward throw, dash attack into either top or right heavy, not the unblockable, into top bleed. The reason why you do not go for the unblockable is because the bleed top will not be guaranteed. If I'll do that right now, I'll go into a throw into the unblockable into bleed top soft feint.
Yep, and I could block that.
Yes, so that's why you have to do either a top heavy or right heavy after your dash attack, is to make sure the bleed lands guaranteed. Okay. Off of a heavy parry, it's just heavy into an unblockable heavy, because I'm pretty sure you can't. I can try it, but I'm pretty sure you can't land heavy bleed off of a parry.
Yep.
So it's just heavy into unblockable heavy off of a OOS parry. So they do differ between guard break and parry.
Alright, so the last thing that we want to talk about for punishes is her revenge activation. So let's see what it is.
Yeah, so it will be zone into top bleed will be the optimal punish for that.
Yep, so that's about 33 damage for the zone, and with revenge, of course, damage, and the bleed probably around 20-25, so that's about 50 something.
24, 26 for the bleed stab.
Yep, so that's about 60 damage or something like that. So that's the revenge activation punish. Alright, so we talked about the punishes, and now what about the Shaman's feats? Now, her feats are being changed. Some of her feats are being changed in Marching Fire, which is coming in 3 or 4 days, depending when this video is going to be uploaded. And the changes that are coming are Stun Trap, Bear Trap, and Nail Bomb. So all traps in the game are going to be nerfed so that you can only have one of them at a time. So you can only have one Stun Trap and one Bear Trap at a time. You cannot have 5 Stun Traps and 5 Bear Traps at a time. And also an additional small buff to Stun Trap is that the cooldown of Stun Trap is going to be increased. The cooldown of Stun Trap is going to be decreased from 90 seconds to 60 seconds. So Clutch, what do you run right now, and do you think there will be any changes when it comes to feat setups in Breach or just simply in Marching Fire?
Well, as of right now, my preferred feat loadout for Shaman is Stun Trap, Bear Trap, Second Wind, and Scout. The reason why I run Stun Trap and Bear Trap is because they have a couple of uses. First of all, on some maps, there's quite a long distance, like a large distance between the minion lane and the control points, right? And the traps can be very useful for a shaman thanks to her high movement speed. To if she's rotating around looking for a gank, if she's going across the midpoint, she can put down the traps in mid, which can be really, really helpful for your teammates that are in the minion lane, especially if there are characters like Conk on the enemy team, which can be a real pain to deal with for certain mid characters, like for Lawbringer, or for Kensei, or even like a Nobushi can't, like none of them can really deal with a conqueror in the minion lane like efficiently. So having these traps to say like exhaust him can help. For example, like a Kensei, you can apply pressure with him with Pommel Strike. Nobushi can try and apply pressure with her hidden stance. So like that's one of the uses for him. But another great use with these traps is that it can help Shaman hold a point much better by herself, for two reasons. One reason is the traps obviously put the opponent out of stamina, which, as we talked about earlier, her unblockable mix-up is quite strong when someone's out of stamina, because if you last frame feint it and the other person is struggling to react to last frame feints because they aren't the easiest to react to, and you get a guard break, then you get your full dash attack top or right heavy into bleed, which then you can also go for a bleed pounce mix-up while they're out of stamina. Which is obviously extremely strong, and if you land the bleed pounce, a majority of characters are going to be extremely low after that. Or if not even talking about that, it enables Shaman to survive for longer, because she isn't the best 1vx character in the game. Like, yes, she has a side 500 MS side dodge attacks, and her bleed stabs target swapped are okay while in revenge, but the problem is her side dodge attacks have very bad tracking. So like if you try to target swap to someone who's not right next to you, you'll end up whiffing, and you'll obviously have like some recovery as well, which leaves you open. Her dodge attacks don't have as many like iframes as someone like Orochi would have, or someone like Berserker has on his. And it's you can't really use her side dodge attacks in the same way as like a Berserker, where you say you target swap, hit someone with your side dodge attack you're not actually locked onto, and you can keep chaining. So having these traps to exhaust people while she's holding, say, like the enemy's home point is very strong, because it allows you to buy more time for your teammates to rotate around and help you out, and also gives you a little bit of time to maybe just land some extra damage in before they get their stamina back, which is very useful. That's why I like the traps. Second wind is kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah.
It's a great heal. It also heals all of the bleed on you. So say if you're in a situation where Shaman's trying to gank you, you can pop that and force them to try and set up bleed again, which will help a lot. It can also be extremely important, not just for buying time in when you're outnumbered, but also for like your sustain. So being able to stick around in fights for longer, not having to run away to heal, that can be the difference between a won and lost team fight.
Yeah.
When it comes to tier 4, there's actually 2 feats in tier 4 which you can use, and both of them can be very powerful. Nail bomb's a bit of a meme, simply because you can like, you can pop it like any other trap and completely avoid all the damage. Or yes, it deals a lot of damage if you hit someone with it, but if they've got second wind, then they'll just heal all of the damage that it's just applied, and it'll be useless. And if a warden walks over it, it's also going to be dealing no damage.
Yeah.
So you have 2 feats, right? You have Fire Flask. Fire Flask is extremely strong, deals a lot of damage. It is an amazing area of denial feat. Especially when Breach comes out, there's going to be certain areas which you're going to want to be fighting on, whether it's the archer points, the heal point for the champion or guardian, or for the king itself. And Fire Flask is going to be very strong in all of these different situations, because the enemy team, unless they're a warden with thick blood, aren't really going to be they don't want to be standing anywhere near that area of effect fire damage, because it does hit really hard. And it can single-handedly win big team fights. However, the reason why I like Scout is because it works no matter where you are on the map. The Fire Flask is only going to help the fight where you are presently with Shaman, whereas with Scout, it doesn't matter whether there's a big 4v4 team fight, whether there's two 2v2s, whether there's two 1v1s and one 2v2. The Scout is going to be able to help everywhere on the map because it applies to every player on the map. And the only time it won't apply is either if an enemy player is dead and hasn't respawned yet, or if it's a character that's running stealth, because characters who run stealth don't have Scout applied to them. The thing is that there's pretty much no characters that would want to run stealth, because running stealth for any characters that might want to be ran in like 4v4 game modes, for example, say like Shinobi, he has two other tier 1s that are going to be better pretty much in every other situation, either as Ki for stalling or for or his Bounty Hunter for healing. So Scout is extremely strong, especially in Breach as well, because Breach maps are much bigger than Dominion maps, and it's going to be rare that you have big 4v4 fights that aren't in the final phase. So the Scout means that you'll be able to pop it at the end, or pretty much at any point in the game. You'll be able to see where everyone is. You'll be able to kind of work out what the enemy team's going for. Maybe you might be able to catch them when they're going for the Guardian. You can make an effort with your team to go and prevent this from happening. Maybe take it yourself if they've already dealt damage.
Yep.
So not only does it apply a really nice defense debuff and also stamina debuff for the opponents, but it will also provide a lot of information for your team, which in Breach is going to be a lot stronger than it is in Dominion. But even in Dominion, it can be good if you're using it when breaking, just to figure out if the enemy team's going to try and go and capture a point, an unbreak, or anything like this. So that's why I personally prefer Scout over Fire Flask. And as far as what I would run after Marching Fire release with the trap nerfs, I don't know if I would really change my loadout at all. Like Stun Trap and Bear Trap, yeah, it's definitely going to hurt not being able to plant multiple down, because right now you can have traps both in mid and the point you're holding, so you can get the benefits of, like, you can get both benefits at the same time. Whereas it will be a case after Marching Fire where you'll probably have to decide what you want, right? Do you want to put one trap in mid, one trap on the point you're holding? Do you want both on the point you're holding to be able to hold it for longer, or to be able to win 1v1s easier? Or do you want both in mid to help out your mid characters while you just rotate around and you don't put too much of an effort into holding the enemy's home point?
Yeah, also when it comes to traps, they might be pretty interesting in Breach, where, for example, if your team is going for the Guardian, you can just put the traps in the entrances to the Guardian so that the enemy team cannot steal your Guardian as easily as they would otherwise be able to. You can obviously put them on healing points, so they have some uses in Breach as well. So yeah, that's why Clutch is saying. That's one of the reasons why it would still be probably the same setup, right? With either Fire Flask or Scout for tier 4, but yeah, tier 3 doesn't change, right? Fury is still not that great for Shaman compared to Second Wind. Handak still not the best, right? The traps are pretty good. The only one I could see potentially is like Rush or Stealth maybe for tier 1, but those are, like, Rush is kind of a meme, and Stealth is quite nice, but Stun Trap still might have some uses that are better than Stealth. So I guess we'll see. But I think right now, as you're saying, I think right now it seems like the setup might be the same, right?
Mm-hmm. The only change I could possibly see making is if you wanted to run, say, Fury, simply because, I don't know, you wanted to be better at 1vxing, or you wanted to be better in team fights, then you might also run Fire Flask, because as we discussed in the Berserker guide, that obviously if you pop Fury and then use Fire Flask, it's going to increase the damage that Fire Flask is going to be dealing. But I still think that Second Wind and Scout are going to be stronger than the two feats. So I probably would see myself still running the same feat setup if I play Shaman after Marching Fire release.
Alright, so I think that's about it for feats. So so we talked about her feats, and now it's time for her ganks. So Shaman's one of the best ganking characters in the game. So Clutch, tell us how to do it and tell us why she's one of the best.
Okay, well, as far as how to gank, typically you will want your teammates to guard break for you, so you can get a free bleed stab to apply the bleed. After this, your teammate will typically try to throw out a heavy. There's obviously specific setups you can use with different characters, which are slightly more efficient, but every character is capable of setting up the gank. So after you have applied the bleed stab, your teammate is going to throw a heavy. And the logic behind this is if the heavy if it either lands, blocked, or parried, they can't avoid the follow-up. The reason for this is even if they block it, heavies produce a special kind of stun which keeps them locked in place for longer than, say, blocking a light would, which means they aren't able to dodge while they're in this block animation, which means that they can't avoid the follow-up bite. The reason why this is so strong with Shaman is Shaman's ganks aren't like Lawbringer's, where he requires a wall to really make the most of his crazy ganking potential. Shaman can just gank from anywhere on the map, wall, no wall, like open space, small space, large space, it doesn't matter. All you need is your teammate to guard break for you. You apply the bleed, then your teammate will land the heavy into the Shaman pounce. If you want to showcase it now, you want me to guard break?
Yep. And also, of course, teammates should be doing heavies. So there our Val got revenge, but didn't matter because Shaman Bite also interrupts revenge. Which means that the teammate can get 2 heavies, which for some characters is upwards of 80 damage. For Shaman it's about 60 something, 70 almost. So it's a lot of damage, plus the 50 damage of the bite, which means that Shaman can gank so efficiently that she can kill almost everybody from full health to 0. Alright, so we talked about her ganks, so that's gonna be a very big part of her 4v4, but in general, what would you say is the playstyle, and what would I want to be doing as Shaman in 4v4?
Alright, well, considering we're on Citadel, I'll briefly talk about her team fight, like how you're going to be approaching team fights, because that's something that a lot of Shamans don't actually do correctly. So, for example, the typical strategy in Dominion will be you'll send your fastest character to cap your home point, and then you'll send 3 to mid. So usually Shaman will be the one capturing the home point, unless you have like a PK or Shinobi on your team. And then all 4 players will usually meet up in mid for a big team fight. And Shaman's game plan is she does not want to be in the middle of the fight, pretty much ever.
Yep.
So what she wants to do, she's going to be on the outside, like locking on to characters who she knows have attacks that have longer recovery frames. So, for example, like a Kensei zone, or she'll be locking on to, say, like a Warden, waiting for him to either zone or to do like a dash forward heavy, or even the other Shaman on the other team for her dash heavies. And she'll just be sat on the outside of the fight. She'll wait until she sees one of these moves, and then she'll just dash attack. Because the dash attack, because it is quite fast, she can land that dash attack during those recovery frames before the character has a chance to recover it and be able to block again. And then once she's landed that damage, she'll try and back out safely without eating too much more damage. She'll wait for the revenge tags to wear off, and then she'll just continue doing the same thing. Pretty much the only time a Shaman will ever be in the middle of a fight is if she gets revenge, because she can afford to sit in the middle of the fight. But because of like her side dodge attacks having really bad tracking, and her pretty much only good team fight tool being her forward dash attacks, you pretty much always want to be sat on the outside punishing attacks. So that's her general game plan for team fighting. In terms of her overall playstyle for the game mode, you're typically not going to be wanting to get into big team fights with Shaman. You're going to want to utilize your high movement speed. You're going to want to be trying to back cap. You're going to be wanting to try and find out if your teammates are in 1v1s or into like 2v2s, and you want to go to places where you're going to have the numerical advantage to really basically make the most of your ganking potential. For example, let's say if like we were fighting here, and say there was like me, another teammate, and then there was you and someone else, and then say there was a 1v1 going on the C point, I would prefer to leave and probably like leave my teammate either there or wait for another teammate to come help him out, and then rotate myself up to the C point just to quickly gank, get the kill on C. because then, yeah, sure, my teammate might say be in like a numerical disadvantage in mid until another teammate rotates around and helps him out. But if we can get the gank and kill quickly on C while another teammates come to help out in mid, and it's a 2v2 in mid, we'll have the numerical advantage on the map while they're respawning, right? So we gank quickly, we get the renown for it. Usually Shaman doesn't get the kill off the bite, it's a teammate. So whoever I'm ganking with will typically get a decent amount of renown off of the gank. Then we'll rotate into, like, usually the teammates say we'll rotate into mid, make it a 3v2, and then, or if it's a 3v3, I'll then go back cap while we have the numerical advantage. And that's pretty much how you're going to be playing Shaman, is you're going to be trying to go to where there either isn't anyone and back cap, or where you have the numerical advantage to gank and keep on moving around and try to keep up that numerical advantage for as long as possible. There's a reason why quite a lot of times, if you watch, like, say if you watch UDA in Dominion tournaments, when things go well, we kind of just steamroll over our opponents for a while, because we'll get like one gank, and then as soon as we have that numerical advantage, I'll keep on rotating around, because obviously I play Shaman for UDA, and we'll get like several successful ganks in a row, let's say like 3 or 4, just because of the numerical advantage, until the other team like kind of regroups. And by that point, we've got at least 2 out of the 3, if not like a triple cap, and we'll have a large renown and score advantage over the enemy team. So that's really how you want to be playing Shaman overall, is forget about big team fights, because that's not what you're good at. You want to be backcapping, looking for where you can have the numerical advantage, get easy ganks, and basically just try and push an overall numerical advantage across the map. I mean, obviously, if you're running the feat setup we discussed earlier and you have the traps, you're going to want to, like on a map like this, for example, I would typically come to mid and I would place my stun trap and bear traps in this general area for whoever's playing in mid. Normally you and Vinx would be playing in mid with Lawbringer and Nabushi. Setmix would, if he was playing Kensei or Warden, he might also be in mid, but typically he would be either with me or off somewhere else. Basically to help you guys out, not just to win fights, but it can be useful. Let's say you were here, right, on my team, and you were like clearing minions or whatever, and then you looked across and suddenly realized there were, say, like 2 or 3 people on you. If there were a couple traps in mid, you'd be able to like pull back while they ran over the traps, and because they're exhausted and won't be able to chase after you any longer, you'll have a lot more time to run away and not get bogged down in an outnumbered situation. So with the traps, I'll typically try to, as I'm rotating around, I'll place traps as I'm rotating to help out, which is definitely something important to bear in mind when it comes to Shaman gameplay. But other than that, that's pretty much how you genuinely want to be playing Shaman if all things are going well.
So that's about it for her 4v4, but now I have a few questions. So, what do you want to do if you're outnumbered? So if you're in a 1vx situation, 1v2, 1v3, also if you could talk about that in more of a matchmaking sense, because most people who will be watching will of course not be competitive or anything like that. They will most likely be playing solo queues all of the time. So when you're playing solo queue on your stream, or maybe with viewers on your stream, you don't have voice communications, what do you do in 1vx situations with Shaman?
Okay, well, when I don't have revenge, I pretty much do one or two things. I either just sit there trying to turtle for revenge, or I'll try and make use of her really strong side dodge attacks if both players are quite close by to me. Let's say like I'm locked onto you, and a typical thing that'll happen in matchmaking is that people won't gank properly. They'll try to do like either like they'll try to headbutt, or they'll try to throw just attacks into you all the time. When people do this, Shaman has a good chance to like do like a target swap side dodge attack onto someone who's trying to attack you, because you'll avoid the attack and then land your damage, and then you can go into your chain and dash cancel it to lower the recovery frames, right? So you can say if I target swap, do this, and then I'll dodge attack and dash away to lower my recovery frames, and then I'll go back to doing the same kind of thing, right? Trying to fish for parries, trying to block, trying to build up my revenge meter. As soon as you've got revenge, you can start being a little bit more aggressive. You can do like target swap, like top bleed soft feints, target swap zone attacks into target swap bleed soft feints. And let's say one of your opponents is on 2 bars and you're in revenge, and the other character isn't a character that can pump out a lot of DPS on you. For example, like a berserker or a raider. Say if it's like a lawbringer, or say it's it's like a shaman, for example, because she can't deal a huge amount of damage. And you notice the other character, let's say, who's say like a Kensei or a raider, is on 2 bars or less when you're in revenge. You can just go for the bite. And the reason for this is because while you have revenge, your bite cannot be interrupted because you have like hyper armor the whole time. So you can say bite the person on 2 bars, get the quick kill. Even if you're going to be taking a lot of damage from, like say, like the other player, you've got a full bar of revenge health as well as your own health, and you might even have second wind. So you'll be able to take out that one person quickly and then go back to focusing just in a 1v1 against the other player, which is going to be a lot easier. Obviously, if you're fighting against more than 2 people at once, you don't want to be biting, because even with the full bar of shield, you won't be able to survive 2 people wailing on you for the whole bite duration. But if you're fighting 2 people and you have enough health, enough like close to full revenge shield, it's definitely something you can consider. You can also fish for parries, because obviously Shaman's parry punish is pretty decent. Especially in revenge, if you land like the heavy into unblockable, the unblockable will be hitting very hard, because I believe is it the unblockable 40 damage, I think? Yep. Yes, 40 damage. Obviously with the extra attack in revenge, that's going to be hitting very hard. So you can try to bait out parry attempts from opponents. Or not parry attempts, sorry, you can try to bait out like, you know, like an attack onto you, because in matchmaking a lot of people will try to attack you while you're attacking their teammate. So you can get like, say, like feint a heavy into, or feint a zone into a parry, and then you get like the 2 hits. Or you can try and grab someone while in revenge, throw them, and get the dash heavy bleed soft feint, or sorry, bleed combo top that we showed earlier in the punish section, to deal more damage as well. It's 1vxing is definitely one of the more difficult things in the game. It's something you have to play a lot in to kind of understand like the general game sense, you know, like when you should be going for things, when you should be doing things. But what I've mentioned is basically the kind of things you'll want to be doing, and it's just a matter of practicing these and being able to realize and recognize yourself which of these situations are happening right now, and what to do in those situations without needing to think about it too much. There's one other small tip as well that I can provide for Shaman, is that she is the character that is best for chasing after people in the game. So for example, let's say we're at the start of the game, we've just had a big team fight. Let's say you're low right now and you want to try to run away to heal up, not give the enemy team free renown. Shaman can chase after characters. If you just run away, what you do is you do a dodge attack, and if the dodge attack whiffs because I'm too far away, you go into another and you dash cancel it and do another one over and over again. And the good thing about that is that no matter how fast you are, I'll be able to catch up to you and eventually hit you. So basically what you do is you dash, you don't go into the unblockable, you just go into another normal heavy, and you just keep doing it over and over again. And if I run away from you, you'll notice that you'll eventually be able to catch me up and hit me.
Yep.
Whereas a lot of other characters that have moves like that, say like Berserker, they can keep up with people, but they won't actually hit someone. And when Shaman hits someone out of lock, if you don't lock onto me, I believe you can get heavy into chain heavy into bleed top stab guaranteed. So if you like that, okay, you can get 2 heavies then basically. But the thing is, a lot of people might not block the follow up bleed stab anyway, so you can get like 52 damage if you actually manage to catch someone and they're not locked onto you, which is quite a lot of damage. That's over 2 bars of damage just for being able to catch someone trying to run away. So that's something else that Shaman is the best in the game at, is chasing people down and actually being able to hit them and catch them rather than just being able to keep up with them. So that's something else that Shaman's really strong at.
All right. So thank you for all of that. Thank you and I think that's gonna be about it for the guide. So thank you for doing the guide with me. And I hope
My pleasure.
Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys next time.